It's so easy to go on autopilot. And I just think there are some of us that are not on this planet to be the same person next month than we are right now. When you get around other people like that, it's the most uncomfortable thing, but it's necessary to be around other people who are not going to let you coast. I always joke that my friendship really should come with a warning label. Because if you're in my actual life, like my close circle, I can't actually unsee when I see someone's potential. I really can't keep close relationships in my life unless they're willing to be challenged and challenge me in the same way.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, the podcast for women who want to build incredible mental strength to level up their business and lifestyle. I'm Renee Warren, the founder of We Wild Women, author, speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, and your host. Together, we will make you unapologetic about shining your light, growing your business, and turning you into a wildly confident and successful leader. This is for you, the visionary, the go-getter, the entrepreneur, and for those that need a real kick in the butt to get going and to dream bigger. Each week, I bring in leading experts and entrepreneurs to help you take leaps in the right direction, because I know the best advice comes from someone who has successfully done it before. So, are you ready to level up? Welcome to Into the Wild. Hey, you wild women. My next guest is somebody who I have deeply admired for a few years now. I came across her, just randomly found her podcast and started tuning in weekly to her episodes because her show is incredible. Lindsey is an entrepreneur, investor, top podcast host, and the founder of Powerhouse Women. Fiercely committed to supporting other women, Lindsey invests her time in mentoring girls and women of all ages, from high-achieving entrepreneurs to high school students. And she has built an incredible community and a must-attend event called Powerhouse Women. Now, if you've tuned into episodes in the past, this past summer, we had a state of emergency in Kelowna, BC, and there was one particular event we couldn't fly out of to get to, and this was her event. It broke my heart that we couldn't get there. She was absolutely beautiful in helping us get a refund for the event, but also in providing us an open door to the next event coming up in August of 2024. Not only is she a powerhouse in her community, but she is also a heart-led leader, an incredible soul. So in this episode, we chat about how women can and should persevere in the face of uncertainty, how far the next level really is for most of us, why it's important to always be expanding and growing and learning, and why you shouldn't stop at the threshold of where you are and where you ought to go. Please welcome the incredible Lindsey Schwartz.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. First off, I mentioned you on my show before, but you are someone that I think I listened to consistently for like 6 months. And every time you dropped an episode, this was well over a year ago, I'm thinking.
And you're still somehow not sick of my voice. It's amazing.
No, I'm not sick of your voice. And I was supposed to attend your incredible event in Scottsdale, of which you are doing again in August.
Yes, August 2024.
And it's Powerhouse Women. And the cool thing about this event, ladies, is she has a pajama party the night before. How cool is that?
You know, it's one of those things that for me, a lot of how even business has unfolded has been just leaning into my natural intuition and things that I find really fun. And it's just become part of the culture. But that actually started as a joke because I said, if I were going to do another event before the main event, like a kickoff party, I wanted to show up in my pajamas. And then I realized maybe we all want to show up in our pajamas. And also, it's just so much less intimidating to meet a room full of powerful women when we're all wearing fuzzy slippers. Is brilliant. And it's been so much fun.
I love when we cave into our jokes. Like my oldest, Max, he's 11. We always have this joke. Anytime I ask him what he wants to eat, he always says birthday cake. And then one time at dinner time, it's like, hey, what do you want to eat for dinner? He's like, birthday cake. And guess what we ate for dinner?
Amazing.
And he's like, that was the best. Because sometimes you just got to go with it. Slippers, pajama party, birthday cake.
Sometimes that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, birthday cake at a pajama party. That's next level, right?
I mean, I'm going to file that one away.
Yeah.
That is a great idea.
So tell us about Powerhouse Women.
Powerhouse Women, oh my goodness. I feel like the way I answer this question is always a little bit different, but at its heart, it's community. And one of the things I think we're known for are these amazing events where there's this culture of very much showing up as your highest self and wearing the thing you don't normally give yourself permission to wear. And it's these empowering conversations around growth and expansion, whether that's in your business or your career or just your life. But it really all started so simply as a need that I was looking to fill for myself. And I don't know if you can relate to this because you are my fellow ambitious woman, but it was at a time in my life where there just wasn't a lot of community, at least in the way that I was desiring it. And sometimes when we can't find what we are looking for, it means that we're probably meant to create it. And I was looking for a place where I could be just as unapologetic about how big my vision and goals really are, and they just continue to expand. But I also wanted a place where we could also be honest about the parts that are really challenging, because when you're dreaming that big, it requires you to go on this personal growth journey that I don't think most of us really know what we're getting into at first, but that's actually my favorite part now. And it's the part that can be challenging if you don't know what to expect. If you don't know that, yeah, as you grow and as you have more success, the challenges actually grow and they magnify to the level that you're playing, but you also become better. So now you're more equipped to handle them. And I just wasn't seeing a lot of people having that nuanced of a conversation, whether it be in business or just in personal development in general. But I wanted a space that could hold both my wildest ambitions, but also just be really honest and not have to pretend like we have it all together, because most of us, at least I can speak for myself, are figuring it out as we go. And I'm learning new things about myself every single day. And that's really become the culture, the heart of what Powerhouse Women is. And my heart really beats for community and specifically gathering people together in person. So we get to do a lot of that too.
So what is it? So it's events, you have an event, and then you have a membership, correct?
We don't anymore, actually. We phased out our membership this last year. Part of that is because when I looked at essentially what I had built, a lot of what had been built on the heels of really what started as an event. The event was the first thing, then came the podcast, then came these other supportive places where we could mentor women in business or just around their personal growth journey. But we mainly served entrepreneurs. And I was in a season where I was seeking a lot of mentorship. I'm a huge believer in mentorship. And also now looking back, I think I was at a point where I realized that I was creating a lot of things because other people thought they were good ideas. Other people, including women in our community, were saying, gosh, I just wish there was a place for this. I wish you had a mastermind. I wish you did XYZ. We sat down, my business partner and I, in May of this year, and we said, okay, if we were starting it all over from scratch, what would we want Powerhouse Women to be? It's like the perfect question that you're asking. What do I want the answer to be? And the first things out of my mouth, it wasn't even coming from my head, like it wasn't a logical thought, it was my heart. And it was the podcast and the events. Those are the two things that I feel like we do better than anyone else. We do them differently than anyone else, specifically like the live event component. So we're going all in on that. We're relaunching our podcast. It's just getting like an upgrade. The podcast still exists. It's still ongoing 5 years in, or 4 years in, really. 500 episodes, but then we're going all in on events, plural. And I haven't actually talked about this a ton, but we're doing our signature event, but then something more high level, more tailored to women like you and I in the spring. And we're really going all in on the thing that I feel like we just have the biggest opportunity to impact people in those ways. Totally. That was a long answer to your question, but that's the heart of it.
That's exciting. I love that. I love when you can just feel that this isn't right. It's not aligned. It makes showing up for work not fun.
Yeah.
I did business coaching for 3 years between my agencies and I didn't love it. I was good at it. And I don't want to say it was easy, but it was something I just was not aligned with. But it's people are like, hey, Renee, you should coach. Or how much would it be for me to get you as a coach?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it. After 3 years, I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I really want to go back into PR, which is harder. It's so much harder to do this work, but I love that challenge.
Sometimes it doesn't necessarily make logical sense to that more masculine side of our brain that's like, but you can make money doing this, or other people really celebrate you for doing this. And I had to carve out my theme really this last year has had a lot of space in it, a lot of space to just evaluate, not just like who do we want to be as a business, but what do I want to spend my time doing, just like you said, and where do I feel? And I think this is the tricky thing for someone like you, someone like me. I can do a lot of different things, and I'm actually really good at a lot of different things. I love to serve people. So the moment I see a need, I want to fill it. But the more I was spreading myself thin, being involved in all these different things, the less I felt like I was getting to go all in on the things that I do think we do better than most, So it was a tough decision. And you were mentioning the podcast. It's been a big theme on the podcast this year of just taking people along on that journey of doing less, but doing it better, choosing to make less money this year intentionally so that we can spring forward and I think make an even bigger impact than we've ever made before. You don't hear most entrepreneurs talking about that. Like, I slashed my business in half this year instead of like, I 2x or 10x my revenue. I want to hear the story of the person who's like, no, I gave it a haircut. And, it's going to take maybe a year to grow back.
Give
but
it a haircut.
It's going to, right? It's like, we got to cut off that dead weight and let it grow back into what it's actually supposed to be. So that's been our season. But I think it's allowing us to just get even more acquainted with the people in our community and what they really want.
I love that. One of the questions I had to answer on an intake form for a mastermind I'm going to tomorrow was about what are the things that have helped me in my business in the last 6 months? And number 2 was really honing in on my offers and not falling prey to shiny object. So that meant I came in with 2 core offers that are working, and don't change that. Don't add more or don't pull away. Just keep pushing on that because it's working. And so when things start to work and we get a little more time back, so if you've read my husband's book, Buy Back Your Time, you would have hired an assistant and you get your time back. And then what people end up doing is they end up starting something new as opposed to going deeper and doing the thing better.
So true.
So I love that you're doing that. And I can't wait to attend this year. What are the dates again in August?
August 9th and 10th in 2024.
Wow.
Mark your calendars.
I know. Make sure that my city isn't burning down then.
That would be great. Yeah. If they could just hold off on any of that, the wildfires, that would be great.
Well, there's not much left to burn down, so we're good. It's terrible. So you say that we aren't meant to do business or life alone. Where did you come up with this? I guess it's a motto or a slogan. And why is it important to you?
I think most of the things that have kind of taken on a life of their own within our community and the things that have really caught on were never intended to be. And maybe this is like our theme for today. It's like the things that actually create the most magic within your business aren't always the thing that were discussed over a strategy session or were put up on some big white sheet of paper when you're doing your annual planning. And this idea that we're not meant to do business or life alone really came from the whole reason and intention why Powerhouse Women started in the first place. And then it ended up being something that I just said, not intending for it to be this big moment, but I said it from stage at our second annual event. And then it was like, when you go to events and there's that one line that just hits everybody and they like start to retweet, repost. Yeah. When Lindsey said this, it just really resonated. And I was like, oh, that at its core is why we exist. Because when I think back to even my personal story and what led to the forming of the community, I had written a book and I wrote a book in secret, completely in secret, because I didn't have an audience for it. I was pivoting from being known in health and fitness, a brand I had built for 6 or 7 years, and wanting to talk more about personal growth and eventually business. And I wrote this book not knowing if I would actually finish it, part of the reason why I didn't share it. And I will never forget the feeling on launch day, because this was like a hybrid self-published book. So I was the one marketing it. And I finally had to tell people that I wrote a book and ask if they would buy it. And I remember on launch day, this was back when I was bigger, more active on Facebook than Instagram. And on Facebook, I lost count at 50 people in my life who had shared the link and were genuinely so excited for something that I did. I mean, people going all the way back to like my 4th grade reading teacher who I had not been in touch with. I didn't even know she was alive, much less on Facebook. The feeling of that support. And here's what impacted me in that moment. I chose to do it the hard way. I chose to do this really big, scary thing, which is writing a book. That is not easy. That is a whole spiritual and personal development experience in itself. But I chose to do it the hard way because I didn't ask for help or let anyone support me. maybe, just maybe, had I known that kind of support was waiting for me on the other side of saying, okay, here, I did it, maybe I wouldn't have gotten in my own way so much. Maybe I wouldn't have thought of quitting so often. And I just had this little seed of a thought. It wasn't even something I knew what to do with yet. Just the thought that, okay, if this book is really written for women like me who have these big ideas that they know they're here to create, or they just know they're meant for more, they might not even know what that looks like yet. If they knew there was support waiting for them, maybe they wouldn't get stopped. Maybe they wouldn't quit when their current life circle of friends and family doesn't get it. They've got this whole other group of people who are like, oh yeah, that's easy. Here, let me connect you with these 3 people. Read this book, actually listen to this podcast. That's going to set you on the right trajectory. And it's like this idea of if you knew you had all the support that you needed to make that big dream a reality, would you just get there faster? Because I don't think we have to do it the hard way. But as women, I can speak for myself. I know that there's this part of me that very much felt this pride in figuring it out on my own, which is essentially choosing to do it the hard way. And I'm still learning that lesson. There's still ways that lesson shows up for me all the time where there's actually more support available for me than I'm allowing in or than I'm comfortable asking for. And I think that's the secret. I think as women, especially, we are such communal beings. I think we want to serve and help each other. I do not buy into the idea that women are catty and competitive. At least they're not in my world. They just really aren't. We want each other to win. We believe there's more than enough to go around. And it became this motto that we really champion within the Powerhouse Women community because I think it really touches on so many different things. Number one, a lot of the reason why people don't start or finish that big thing is they don't have support. They feel alone. They feel like they're crazy because no one gets it. You don't feel crazy when you're surrounded by people who your wildest dream is their daily reality.
Yeah.
It just doesn't even feel scary. And then knowing that really I love the book Who, Not How. It's usually a matter of, okay, who do I need to connect with that knows how to do this versus how do I need to get this done? And I think when we can really embody that, I actually think we just move so much further, faster, and it's less lonely. It's more fun when we do it together.
So when you were publishing this book, how did you eventually ask for help?
It was so cute. Now, you are in PR, so let me tell you, everybody listen to Renee if you want to know how to launch a book. Let me give you the lesson on how not to launch a book.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't tell a soul until literally a week or two before it was about to launch. I created this little Facebook event and a Facebook group. Now this has evolved into like our general open Powerhouse Women Facebook group. But I just started to individually message women in my life who, whether they knew it or not, had inspired me to keep going on this journey. And I just shared, hey, I did this thing. And whether you know it or not, you were someone who inspired me. And here's what it's about. You can use this link to join this Facebook group if you want to support. And I feel like my background is in network marketing. So I also had a lot of trauma around like being added to groups that you didn't want to join. But also, I just think there is a way to sell or to ask for support that allows people to show up for us the way they actually want to. People love to support. People love to show up for you. It's all in the energy of how we ask. So I just very humbly shared, I did this thing and I was vulnerable. Like this was a scary thing and I'm more scared to launch it and at the thought of people reading it. But I know that this is important and I would love to invite you along on the journey. That was really even just like the start of how Powerhouse Women as more of a movement began. I had to go first with that vulnerability to share the places where I didn't have everything all figured out, but then to be willing to ask for and then allow an uncomfortable level of support just by saying, hey, what would mean the most? Specifically, here's how you can help me. Share the link, buy a copy, write a review. Because I think so often like we'll ask for help, but we don't give people the specific way to help in an easy way that's impossible for them to say no to. It's just such an easy yes because we do all the legwork and we're specific in our request. And I feel like that season really taught me the power of that specific request.
So I actually had a gentleman in my DMs. We've convinced him to go a date with Destiny for Tony Robbins. And he had asked all these questions. And I said, bring a snack, water, and warm clothes because you're in these rooms for 12 to 16 hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
So he just messaged me and he's like, yeah, we're off to date with Destiny. I said, amazing. And then he just asked how I was doing and he offered help. it was a very broad, like, how can I help you? And I'm like, I usually would default by saying, oh, I'm good, but thank you. How can I help you? But I said, no, this time, like, no, Renee. I go, hey, by the way, I have a spot opening up in January for a client in PR. And if you happen to know of anybody, and I sent him a quick download of who that would be, introduce me to them. And he goes, actually, I have about 20 clients that fit this. And I was like, oh. And he goes, just send me a more detailed avatar and what you offer to them, and I'll shop it around. Just like that. And it's like, because he asked and I answered with something specific.
Yes.
And now it's like, when you ask for help, always ask with the specifics. I'm a hypocrite when I say this, but I always say, when you say, hey, how can I help? It's the laziest way to say, I'm here for you. But if you can actually be specific, like, hey, Lindsey, your event's coming up in August. What are the best ways I can leverage my platform to help you sell tickets? Boom. It's like, oh, by the way, Renee, here's some email copy if you want to email your list. It's like, if you're specific in the ask.
Let's even like dissect that as a relationship building tool. If there's someone that you're wanting to build a relationship with and you're leading with value, I love that. But the moment someone is in my DMs just saying, hey, let me know how I can help. Now it's subtle, but it feels like the work is on me. It actually just created more work. I just think it's the way that you phrased it there is just like such a beautiful way that you can stand out, have your request stand out and have it actually feel like support.
Totally.
That goes so far. It really goes so far.
I say it too. Don't get me wrong. I say, how can I help? Because what I'm really saying is I'm here for you. I don't know how I can help you, but maybe there's something that you know, but it's so true. Then the work is put on them and you don't want that. And all it takes is a couple of little minutes just rooting around on their website or on Instagram saying, oh, there's this thing that they're promoting right now, her book. Lindsey just launched her book. Maybe you can go buy a copy and buy a couple copies and give them away. But I love this in the why of your community in creating like Powerhouse Women. And I think it's one thing that really attracted me to you and your community and your podcast too. I mean, you're also a very sweet person to listen to. And it's funny because I remember when I first started listening to you, I was also listening to Andy Frisella because I was doing the 75 hard. It's like, you're the opposite of him completely. And I was like, rah, rah, let's do this 75 hard thing. And then it was like, bloop, Lindsey. And it's like, I feel seen.
I love that. And it's funny because I do feel like there are different elements of my personality that come out on the different platforms. In the spaces where I'm working at a higher level with the women who I know want more, I always have to kind of warn them. I'm like, when you step into this relationship with me, whether it's you're working with us in one of our higher level retreats or masterminds that we did in the past, it's a different Lindsey, but it's coming from the same place. It's because I see what someone wants and I know they can do it. And I know I need that little bit of, it's not even tough love. It's, I need to have my higher self, the voice of my higher self mirrored back to me. And when I am with someone and I'm in their energy, I think one of my gifts is I cannot unsee their potential. I've learned I have to ask for permission. Like, to me, that permission is when they join a higher level program or we're in a coaching relationship. It's that permission to say, like, I'm not going to let you play small. I'm not going to allow it. You invested in this. You invested in yourself, or you invested in this experience. And we were saying this earlier, especially for those of us that are already playing a pretty big game. I think this is actually one of the subtle traps that can happen, because the moment that your current level, whatever level you're playing at, it stops being expansive for you, but it still looks really expansive to everyone else who's following along. It's so easy to coast. It's so easy to go on autopilot. And I just think there are some of us that are not on this planet to be the same person next month than we are right now. When you get around other people like that, it's the most uncomfortable thing, but it's necessary to be around other people who are not going to let you coast. I always joke that my friendship really should come with a warning label. Because if you're in my actual life, like my close circle, I can't actually unsee when I see someone's potential. So it starts to feel, I really can't keep close relationships in my life unless they're willing to be challenged and challenge me in the same way, because I know what I'm here on this planet to do. So you can listen to the podcast if you want some love, but if you want that, Lindsey, she's actually real fun. That's the version of me that I think
everybody needs that
actually makes the biggest impact in people's lives.
All right. So Lindsey is somebody I've admired for a while because she is brilliant and she has great stories and always something magical to share. And I know that part of our growth was really in taking chances and doing things that really scared her. As with most women and anybody that's become successful, is we have to do the things that are a little bit uncomfortable, outside of our comfort zone, things we feel we will probably fail at one point, but that's really the point of growth. And I know for a fact that there is one thing that stops a lot of women from doing PR, getting on podcasts, getting nominated for awards, speaking on stages. It's that fear that they don't deserve that attention. But let me tell you, you do. And there's one thing I would love to offer you is a chance to really see the potential in yourself, seeing what can be. And all you got to do is go to wewildwomen.com and look at the programs that we offer there. So one of them is Sidelines to Headlines, which is a retainer-based program. The other one is the Authority Booster Intensive. And what I love about both of these is it's not just your retainer-based PR or PR VIP day. I coach you through those emotions of why you're stopping yourself short of achieving greatness. So head on over to wewildwomen.com to check out the programs or follow me on Instagram, Renee_Warren. Can you recall an event or a moment in your career that really leveled you up?
I mean, there really have been a few, and every season it looks a little bit different. But I think for me, when I wrote and published my book, it was, and I am not joking when I say this, it was the first time I'd ever attempted to do something that I did not know if I could do or if I would be good at. It was the first time that I actually ever risked what I would consider failure. It's funny looking back now. I don't think that failure was actually a possibility, but at that time, it felt like the first time I had said yes to attempting something that I didn't already have fully figured out in my mind how it was going to work out. What I learned from that experience is we don't actually grow until we bump up against the part of us that wants to quit. We're not evolving. You don't require faith at all. Like if you are a person of faith of any kind, faith isn't required until you step beyond what you know yourself to be capable of. All along, I thought I was playing really big, and this was in my previous business. Now looking back, I realized I was playing at maybe 60 to 70% of like my full potential, but I was staying within the realm of what I could control. I could control how I was perceived. I could control the outcomes. I could play at 70% and it could look like other people's 100. And that was such a sneaky way of sabotaging myself, because it felt really good to be acknowledged, and I got awards, I got to speak on stage, I got all these outward accolades, and none of it filled that void inside me that just was screaming, there is so much more for you, and you are so not willing to play fully to actually step into that.
I remember, it was somebody on Instagram, she said that easy robs you of pride. And if something is easy, you're not going to be proud of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are easy. And hey, we hope that you eventually create systems in your business, in your life to make things easier. But it's to create capacity for something else.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a household where, and this is also like no shame on my father, but he said, the money in your bank account is the money that you've earned. So you've worked blood, sweat, and tears to get that money. And so if I didn't earn the money by way of those hours and working really hard, then I didn't feel like I earned it. And that was just like deposited in my brain forever. And so for me, I had big blocks in raising my prices and charging more and asking for longer commitments because I don't feel like I've earned that yet. But I already put in like 20 years of being an entrepreneur at this point. I know what it means to run a couple businesses.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
So we think about those like stories that we were told that circle in our brain because we think that's the right thing, and it actually stops us from going forward.
And it's tricky. It's one of those things you have to develop such an authentic and an honest sense of self-awareness, because there weren't many people in my life at that point, because I wasn't willing to surround myself with them, who would call me out on that and say, okay, yeah, I hear your goals for next year, but they kind of sound easy. And that's not to say there's not seasons where maybe it's actually in service to your deeper personal growth I don't think you always have to have like this crazy, outrageous external goal. I'm realizing more and more that the The personal internal growth is really what I'm after. And that's always going to look different. This year, it was actually by being willing to let go of a lot of the external stuff, right? Let go of, oh, I have to always grow my business revenue. It always has to be on this upward trajectory. This year, the most uncomfortable thing for me was doing less for a little season and getting quiet and really listening, like deepening my own connection to my intuition. So this has been a massively expansive year that maybe doesn't look like it on the outside, but the internal transformation is what's preceding what's going to happen in the next season. So now it's so much more of asking myself, like, where am I being asked to grow next? And sometimes that doesn't look like chasing the next big goal just because, okay, I hit multiple 6 figures. Now my goal has to be 7 figures. But why? It doesn't always look like continuing to move the benchmark. Sometimes it looks like a season of stripping away what can't come with you into the next season. That's my favorite quote. There's a quote by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he says, in order to step into a new future, you have to first confront the parts of you that aren't going there. And when you're playing a big game, the parts that can't come with you are sometimes the habits, the mindset, the beliefs that actually made you who you are. Like, they are very productive. These aren't bad habits we're now getting rid of. They're just ones that can't come with you into the next evolution of yourself. Not enough people talk about just how uncomfortable that is. And it's my favorite thing to talk about.
I'm very uncomfortable you saying this right now.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Tomorrow, we're going to a mastermind that has some pretty amazing people that I've admired for a long time. And I kept telling myself that I don't deserve a seat at this table. Someone else should be there. It's not me, because I look at what these people have accomplished. Why am I in this room? I don't know. I believe in God. There's a reason why God's like, ploop, there goes Renee. Mm-hmm. Like Plinko down the little thing. She's going to arrive somewhere because she's meant to be there. And when I shared this on social, somebody said to me, you got to remember that where you think you don't belong or where you don't deserve to be is an opportunity for you to create space for the people that also don't think that they belong there, along those lines.
That's so good.
And I was like, yeah, that's right. Because I am there not because of what I've accomplished, but because of who I am. And it goes back to the thought that you gave me earlier about when you're talking about expansion. The Joe Dispenza quote that you said too. It's like, what do you have to leave behind? Expansion doesn't mean doing more. It could mean doing less. Mm-hmm. But we always think of progress, next level, leveling up. It's like, got to do more. Got to get the 6-pack abs. Got to earn more money. It's like, no, you're like, heck no. It means I'm going to do less, but do more of the things that I love to do. And so we think about like, where in our lives are we doing this too? Where are we doing too much because we feel like that's what we need to be doing when it's not what we need to be doing?
Yeah. And that's kind of where the self-awareness comes into place, because for some of you listening, you are in a season where it's time to put your foot to the gas pedal and go. For me, even thinking about that season when I was writing the book and I was just proving to myself that I could break through this stale, stuck energy of only doing the big things that were within my control. Now, it's really more about refinement and grounding myself even more, grounding my nervous system into this ability to hold more space. And it requires me to actually have a whole different process of doing business, because I believe that I'm meant to reach more people. I'm meant to be seen in a bigger way, be heard in a bigger way. And I could have kept going the way I was going, but it would have been at the detriment of my health, possibly my relationships. So it's not just what's the goal we want to reach, it's how do we want to feel when we get there, and what's the life we want to build around these goals. I love a big goal. It's my favorite thing in the world to chase big goals. But this year has really taught me a few really important lessons. And the motto this year has been, don't confuse stillness with laziness. Because I think a lot of my identity was wrapped up in how much I was doing, which has a cap on it. So can I be just as powerful through who I'm being and be just as powerful in how I'm showing up, and trust that actually more financial abundance, more impact can come through that? It's not like you were saying, that story that I very much had growing up in the Midwest, which is like, it has to be hard work. It has to feel like hustle and grind in order for me to receive it. So a lot of those things I think about, and I can't wait to reflect back 5 years from now. I could have kept going at the rate I was going. I just think I would have started to show up in negative ways in other areas of my life. And nothing is more important to me than my marriage and my relationships and my health, ultimately. So looking at it more holistically, and I think as women, this is really where our zone of genius is. I think we actually are wired to operate differently. I'm not supposed to be Andy Frisella, right? But that might work for him. I think my version of success is going to look different. It's going to feel different. I'm excited to share as much as I can in that process with other women who want all the big things. They do not want to sacrifice their goals, but they also don't want to sacrifice how they feel. They don't want to sacrifice their connections, because I don't think we have to.
No. Danielle Laporte, she wrote a book called The Desire Map. And one of the questions she asked, and I love this book so much, is in framing how you want to feel next year is like, the question really is, how do you want to feel? So there's always these goals about like, how much money do you want to achieve? Like, where do you want to travel? All these things you want to do. But really is, can we actually go back a little bit and ask ourselves, how do we want to feel? Like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed. This year was very overwhelming because there was a lot of moving pieces. And I don't want to feel overwhelmed anymore. Then I look back and I reflect, what were the things? For me, it was too much travel back to back. And we know I need to like space that out a little bit, because I'm a homebody and my husband knows this and he keeps pulling me. It's like, it's fine. We're going to plane ride tomorrow. I get it. But yeah, I'm also a homebody. So really asking yourself, how do you want to feel? And for you, it's like, you want to feel great and nurturing that community. And you knew what you had to do to make that right for yourself and for the people that want to be a part of that community. Peeling back those layers.
What is so beautiful is realizing that everything that I'm now in this past year or two have stopped doing, they were things that really served a purpose in the season that they did. But those of us who are leaders, we are leading people and influencing people in any respect. And I think we all are. A really important thing to remember that I had to remember is, in order to be a leader in integrity, people need to see you evolve. And sometimes that does mean evolving out of ways that you were serving people before, because it opens up a void where maybe one of them is meant to step up and they're meant to create that container and that space. But if I'm only serving people in the capacity where I feel like I get a lot of validation, it's easy for me and it feels really nurturing, at some point, I am no longer growing. And I also started to notice there were people in the community that weren't growing. And that was on me to continue to seek that expansion for myself and pave the way for them to go at their own pace and do that too. And more I'm realizing, that is what at least my business journey is. It's constantly seeking my own expansion and evolution. And I think what's cool is, like, in this season, it's really been my evolution as a wife and as a life partner. And it isn't even so much about business, but it absolutely affects business as well. And I just think that's so cool.
So in this community, you're growing, you're expanding. I don't want to say next level, but you're doing things that are incredible. Do you ever worry that you might alienate those people that were there from the beginning, or even like that level of woman coming into the community?
I don't think it's possible I'll answer personally, but I want you to hear yourself in this, those of you listening, because I think this is a fear. We're afraid of outgrowing people. You can never outgrow someone. They get to choose whether they want to come along or not. And not everyone is meant to follow along with me or with this community at every stage of the journey. We intentionally create the most inclusive environment. No matter if you are brand new, you just are starting this personal development journey, or you're just starting your business journey, there's a spot for you. If you are someone who's 10 times more successful than me, I have powerful gifts to serve that woman with. But I don't have to worry about who is opting into that or who's not. And this is very much what I'm focusing on now, to be in integrity for myself, who I say I am. I'm always growing in some way and sharing it really authentically and vulnerably. And I trust that who is meant to be impacted by that is going to know it and feel it and opt into it. And you know the freedom that that's given me?
Totally.
It's wild. And not to say that I haven't had that fear in the past, but I think anytime I'm afraid of outgrowing someone, what I'm actually afraid of is I'm afraid of what the next level is going to require of me. And sometimes we need to outgrow whatever we are making that mean people so that they can step into the person they're supposed to become. It's actually doing them a disservice if we don't.
That's true. Bam, it was a great answer. I love it.
It's hard because I love everyone and I want to take them all along. But I also love that for some people, they might get to a point where they're like, you know what? Now this other podcast or this other event is serving me. And that's beautiful. It just goes to show there's so much room for all of us. But I also do believe that my mission is to create a space where no matter what stage of the journey someone is on, they still see their place within Powerhouse Women, because we're all just on this expansion journey together. And that's the coolest part about it.
We're just a giant rock going through space, spinning around the sun.
It's wild, right?
It's so crazy.
Just here for like a nanosecond, right? Basically.
So yeah, you look at it from that perspective, we can just do whatever we want. So one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Ooh, I feel like I'm just now tapping into this part of myself. This is the answer that's right there on the top of my mind. I am looking at my relationship in every area of my life with control and how much I think control gives me a sense of certainty. Because what it feels to me, that when I embody what it feels to be wild, it's really someone who's willing to go to the edges of uncertainty and fully experience all parts of herself, which includes fear. It includes looking at the shadows of ourself and the things that we're meant to outgrow. It includes the edges of the fullest expression of my possibilities and my potential, which I don't think I've scratched the surface of yet. That's what it means to me. And I'm very much in that inquiry right now as we speak. Yay. So stay tuned.
I love it. I can't wait to hear more. So if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
Probably the easiest place is on our Instagram. Our community Instagram is Powerhouse_women. And you can pretty much find anything you need from there. I always say I'm not too hard to find online.
No. Well, Lindsey, this has been unbelievable. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time: the best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.